Good morning, everybody. Morning. Welcome. I'm presenting this morning on streaming to social media, which has most certainly been a trend here at Streaming Media West. I'm excited to be showcasing some Wowza technology this morning. We're going to be essentially taking one stream from an encoder, proxying it onto a cloud-based transcoder, and getting it out to multiple social media sites. So this is it's kind of a discussion and a use case where you may have a weak last mile, or you just want to hit everything with one stream. So we'll go through encoding a live stream that's distributed out to multiple social media networks simultaneously. In the less than 45 minutes that we have here, I'm going to publish to Wowza Streaming Cloud, which of course will show you in brief the setup for that. We're more than happy to dive into detail and help you on a one-to-one basis in getting a cloud instance set up and running. I'll certainly give you an overview this morning on that. Another thing that I found interesting in preparation was reviewing the various broadcast and streaming requirements for each social media network. There's some similarities and there's some subtle differences that we'll identify. And then once we understand where we're pushing these streams to, we'll configure the transcoder, which again is cloud-based, to make sure that things like resolution, bit rate, etc., are aligned so that we can get the best possible stream into these social media networks. And then finally, once the transcoders are set up, we'll go back and we'll get the settings for each network, which is basically Rtmp URLs and stream keys, insert them into each transcoder as what we call a stream target. And again, we'll go through this at mid-level so you'll see it visually, how it all pans out. And in the end, what I'm anticipating is we'll see a stream on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope simultaneously. So that's the game plan. And then at the end, as we have time, we'll go through some practical applications, talking about the good and the bad and getting one stream to multiple locations. So a couple of assumptions. One, you really do need to have a strategy in this. Personally, I was doing a stream for a mid-sized church, just kind of a side helping a guy out project, and we were pushing their streams everywhere. And one thing I realized is, and it's an old adage, I don't know if this is an old Western cowboy adage, but when you're aiming at everything, you're hitting nothing. That's not necessarily true if you have a strategy, but sometimes you can get so excited about the fact that your stream is syndicated everywhere that you don't realize it can be a little messy, it can be a little rough. You wanna think about the user experience, you wanna think about the interaction, you wanna think about moderation, and then also following up if you're an organization that's trying to capture people for the purposes of the organization, business, sales, however you're approaching your strategy. Another thing that's important is choosing a network that aligns with your content. If you are known in the video streaming industry as an expert, like Robert Reinhardt, and you have a whole bunch of material on your YouTube site that is, highly technical, highly industry-oriented, and then you push a stream there of you, surfing at Huntington Beach, there's going to be a little bit of, huh? And you may like the attention, and that may be an extreme example, but you want to make sure that if you're on Facebook, you're doing Facebook kind of stuff. If you're on Twitch, which is an incredible gaming platform, you're doing Twitch kind of stuff. And then Periscope, which is also very interactive, YouTube, etc. So again, this session isn't necessarily a journey on the philosophy or the methodology in putting together a strategy, but I do want to offer that as a caveat. If you're aiming at everything, you might not be hitting everything, and you do need to have a strategy on that. Another issue, and I would assume that you've gone through this, is compliance. Not every network wants you streaming to every other network. I think this is something that's developing. It may become a little looser as this use case continues to evolve, but ultimately you don't want that this stream is no longer available, this stream has been blocked message. You want to make sure you go through the respective rules and expectations that these CDNs have for you using their service. For example, Facebook would prefer, I think they actually require, that you stream to them and you can stream to your own website. Now technically you can go multiple other places, so you're going to have to make a determination on which network you choose, to what extent you're going to honor the compliance, and my official suggestion is honor the compliance. I was thinking about, you get these incredible networks for free. Facebook, Twitch. If you stream to Twitch, it's crystal clear. Periscope is a little wonky, but I mean, again, you're getting access to a global CDN for free versus perhaps using Akamai and other CDNs that certainly require a commercial contract. So a couple prerequisites. You need to have the hardware. And this can vary from a completely equipped production studio. It can be a hobby kit where you've got a tripod, a lighting stand, maybe a microphone. And in many cases, it can be just a mobile device. But you do need to have the hardware necessary for streaming. Typically, those of us here at this convention are very familiar with these dynamics, and if you walk around in the expo hall for 5 minutes, you'll see a lot of options. So you need your hardware, and then I don't think I can emphasize enough, you need the network capability. You need to, if possible, have a hardwire that's hooked up to a dedicated line with QoS. That's optimal. You need to have a wireless connection that isn't bogged down by a whole bunch of other users, because as we all know, anytime you're streaming that last mile or that first mile, you've got to have a good network connection. And another thing, I just thought of this, as we go through the requirements for social media streaming, the bit rates particularly, you can stream up to 6 megabits into YouTube. Actually, you can stream well beyond that, but for 1080p, it's 6 megabits. Well, not all networks can handle that. So you do need to factor in how much you're going to be pushing into that particular social media CDN. And then also make sure you're registered with social media accounts. I've had the opportunity to work with several teams in the NFL, and we'll get on the phone and we'll start working on setting up their Facebook Live push, and they don't know what their password is. They don't have access. So that's another thing that you want to make sure you've got taken care of ahead of time. When YouTube Live came out, some of you may recall, you had to initially have a certain number of followers in order to even use the live service, and I'm certain that they've pulled that back. But don't assume that on the day of your event, you can go sign up for an account and have full access to streaming. Take your time, do your due diligence in setting up and getting access to your social media accounts. And then finally, you need a streaming media platform. And of course, I'm using Wowza Streaming Cloud because that's the service that I know well enough to present in front of a group of professionals. I know there are other options out there, but Wowza Streaming Cloud is a paid service. You can subscribe and you have access to cloud-based on-demand transcoders that have the ability to tailor the stream, as we'll demonstrate today, for perfect broadcast or near perfect broadcast into social media. All right, so I've gotten through my introduction. We are going to actually publish a live stream, and I'm going to move over to a demo mode. And we're going to create a stream inside the transcoding service, inside Wowza Streaming Cloud. We're going to set up the encoder, which I'm going to use Wirecast right here on my computer, and we're going to test it. So the first thing I need to do is get into Wowza Streaming Cloud. I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to save the login screen, but this is basically your splash screen in Wowza Streaming Cloud. Let me zoom in just a little bit in case you're interested in seeing some detail. I'm going to create a live stream. And I'm going to call this live. I need to turn on the lights on my keyboard. I can't see it. Excuse me. Live from SMW to social media. And then I get to choose the broadcast or the ingest locations. So of course I'm going to choose California because that's where I'm located. Obviously, if I was in Oregon or if I was on the East Coast, I'd choose something like Virginia or South Carolina. And then I choose my ingest settings. In this case, I'm going to use, not Teradek, it is Telestream Wirecast. And I'm just going to go through these very quickly. In other circumstances, I may take time to explain each one, but I really just need the transcoder, so I'm going to choose Apple HLS. I'm going to go for a pretty high resolution because that does give you, in some cases, a more powerful transcoder. A couple details here. If I were playing back to a website, I would use Wowza Player, but we're not featuring that today. I'm going to go for a wider player. Let me get through this. Don't need a page. Okay. So I'm ready to start my stream. I'm going to hit finish. and I'm going to start the transcoder. This is really where I wanted to get. So I'm going to hit start, and in the background it's going to actually deploy a transcoding instance in the data center that I selected, and I'm going to start streaming to it. So while that's starting up, I go to Telestream Wirecast. And I'm actually going to download a configuration file that makes it a lot easier to get into Wirecast. So here's the option to download the config. I'm going to call it SME Live. And I'm going to go into Wirecast, Output Settings, and I'm going to create a new destination in Wirecast. And I'm going to choose Wowza Streaming Engine, which has the same settings as Wowza Streaming Cloud. Import Wowza config, which is in my downloads folder, which is right here. Boom, I've got a fresh Rtmp URL, and I should have credentials. If not, for sake of just in case, I'm going to copy my credentials over. We're almost there, folks. Boom and boom. Okay, I'm going to check and see that the transcoder is running, which it is, and I am going to start streaming. And if this thing doesn't start blinking, it means I'm in business. So we're now streaming to Wowza Streaming Cloud. Let me put something up that actually looks interesting. So that over on the right is the output where you see the small screen. That's what's actually going up. And then in the cloud, I should see, and I do, the data starting to show up from Wirecast. So that was a little bit of a quick journey, but we have an official stream going into Wowza Streaming Cloud. You can hold back your applause. No, just kidding. So at this point, once we've validated, and I went fast because it's a fairly standard process, but I wanted to show it in real time just to give you an idea what it looked like. You're sending a stream from your encoder to Wowza Streaming Cloud. Neat. I did in the background preset the bitrate and some of the streaming profiles in Wirecast. It's a little difficult to see in this presentation, but we'll cover it a little bit in a couple minutes. You do want to have your encoder set up for what I would consider your highest quality stream going into the social media network, because we're just going to pass that through, and then we're going to use the transcoder to create renditions off of that. So back to my presentation, we've created a stream, we've set up the encoder, and we've tested the stream. Now we're going to take a minute and review streaming requirements. So I am going to, first of all, take a look at what Twitch is recommending for streaming into their network. And I found these by going to Google and saying Twitch Rtmp requirements. We've all done the same type of search for miscellaneous technology tasks. And I ended up, after a little bit of effort, finding this page. And this is what I'm looking for right here. Video requirements, encoding profile, main, preferred, or baseline. And again, I just note these things down because I'm going to ultimately have a table, and I'll show you the table of the requirements juxtaposed next to each other, so we can see at a high level the differences and the similarities in what each network requires. So it was interesting how Twitch wants strict CBR, so strict constant bit rate, so they really want that bit rate to be solid, which is kind of hard to meet because encoders go up and down depending on the complexity. And like in Wirecast, the reason I'm using such a simple image is if I go over here and show this video, you'll immediately see my CPU go up, and it'll see that little yellow dot. It's like, no, I can't handle that, Tim. So I have to go back and just show text because encoding takes a lot of juice. So in any case, and you could see the bit rate go way up when it's showing a high action video like soccer, basketball, driving. So that's just kind of side information. Twitch wants 2-second keyframe interval. That's actually pretty standard. A keyframe is a bigger piece of information. It's almost like a picture that gets presented into the stream while all the compressed data is happening in the background. So we want a 2-second keyframe interval. The frame rates are fairly liberal. 25, 30, or 50, 60, I'm going to go for 30. I feel like for streaming, 30 frames per second is pretty standard, pretty easy to meet. It's a nice even number. And then the bit rate is 3 to 6 megs per second. So I'm noting 6 megabytes here because I want to get the highest possible stream coming out of my encoder, and that's what Wirecast is set to, by the way. A couple interesting things here. We've got the audio requirement, H.264 audio. I've never heard of that. AAC audio, and then bitrate is 96, so a little lower than standard, but maximum 160. So, again, this is just commentary. Twitch wants strict CBR, but you can do pretty much any audio bitrate you want. So, again, you never know what you're going to get, but it doesn't look like it's too difficult. So that's Twitch. Let's take a look at Periscope. Periscope has fewer recommendations than Twitch. In fact, it's just 5 lines here, 800K. That sounds really low, doesn't it? At the keynote yesterday morning, I think, I believe it was Dan who opened up and he was talking about the good old days of streaming when we were down in the low 100s. And here we are at 800, but now we're up in the 6,000, 12,000. It's amazing how bit rates can vary, but it's unusual, in my opinion, that they only really want 800K. Audio 64 to 96, so they'll take a range. I would go with 96 because I'm looking for similarities. 30 frames per second, and then an interesting resolution here, 960 by 540. And we all know Periscope is very mobile focused. I'm sure several of you have used the platform, at least checked it out or tried it before. So it could be some type of optimization for mobile. But again, I'm just noting this information because I'm going to aggregate it all later. Looks like they've got a 2-second keyframe, 2 second. They have OBS and then 2 different terminologies for keyframes. So we got 2 seconds or every 60 frames. So anyway, that's the Periscope. And then we'll check out YouTube. YouTube is like, you're going to be blown away maybe by this. They do a really good job explaining everything. So Google gives you a nice commentary on making sure your stream is high quality. You could read this page and actually learn a lot about streaming and encoding. They've got a lot of different options. It starts you out up in the 4K range at 60, going all the way down to 240p. I'm looking for, again, similarities. Streaming into multiple networks, multiple CDNs, I want to have to modify as little as possible. So most of what I've seen, at least in Twitch, Periscope, obviously, and now YouTube, and you'll see in Facebook it only requires 720p. I don't want to get in the 4K range because that's overkill. So I'm just going to set my encoder, my Wirecast at 1080p, and that'll be my high quality baseline. So I'm going for 1080p right here. There's the resolution, 3 to 6 kilobytes or 3 to 6 megs. So I'm going to note that. And then down here, they've got some encoding settings. Again, H.264 across the board. They have some codec profiles here that don't really seem to be referred to in the encoder. Like I didn't see like a 5.0 or 5.1 setting in my encoder, and so it seems to be kind of an advanced setting there for the codec. Up to 60 frames per second, 2-second keyframe interval, do not exceed 4 seconds. And then down here we have some audio settings. One thing that I'm noticing is there's the 48,000 and the 44.1 kilohertz audio sample rate. That usually happens at the source. For example, in Wirecast, I can tell it to do 44.1 or I can tell it to do 48. I don't have a way to modify that, at least with the short time that I have, and I'm speaking figuratively, to get these streams into these networks. But I've identified that YouTube wants it at 44.1, and having gone through the details in the other networks, it's not across the board. So I'm just going to give myself a caveat and go, okay, we might have an audio issue because the sample rate isn't consistent. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I have identified that as a potential issue, and then we got 128K. And if you're still with me, we're going to do one more of these. Facebook. So Facebook, again, has some pretty straightforward settings. They very recently bumped it up from 2.5 megabits to 4 megabits. Maximum of 720p at 30 frames per second, 2-second keyframe, you're seeing the pattern. and then they want AAC audio. Very, very simple. It was on a different page. I think that their audio ingest is 128K. And there are different places where this information is presented. For example, if you did a search for Wowza with Facebook Live, we have these settings aggregated on our website, and I'm sure many, many other encoder sites do as well. So in this particular page, it doesn't have a whole lot of info about audio bitrate. And I want to move on because I feel like this could be a little tenuous. But I did want to give you an idea of how I approach this and how it's important to know the specific general settings for configuring streams into social media. So let's get back to our next step here. Now that we've reviewed the streaming requirements, I've got them all sitting here in a kind of a breakdown cheat sheet, and I've highlighted where the differences are. So our bit rate is, for Twitch, is in the 6 to 8 range, 3 to 6 for YouTube. It needs to be under 4,000 for Facebook. So I've identified 3 transcoder settings. Transcoder 1 is going to be 1080p at 6 megabits, and then 128K AAC audio. And they're all going to be at 48 kilohertz because I can only do that from Wirecast. But I do notice that Periscope and YouTube, they want 44.1. Now I'm gonna give you like a spoiler here. It still works at 48. But then again, if I were to have problems on any one of these networks, that's probably the first thing I'd check. So that being said, I'm going to set up 3 transcoders, one at 1080p, one at 720, that's specifically for Facebook, and then one specifically for Periscope. So I'm going to have that one stream coming off Wirecast. It's going to pass through the 1080p. So my Wirecast settings are all aligned with what this transcoder is supposed to do. I'll have the server in the cloud actually create a 720 bitrate rendition and also a 540 or 960 by 540 bitrate rendition. Does it make sense? You guys with me? Okay. So that's my cheat sheet there. Let's go ahead and set up Wowza Streaming Cloud to meet these settings. So I go into Wowza Streaming Cloud where I already have it running. I'm going to stop the transcoder. The reason I'm going to do that is while you can adjust the transcoder settings on the fly, I feel like it's better just to stop the transcoding mechanism, go in, make the modifications, set up your transcoders, double check it, and then turn it on and see if they all show up. So in Wowza Streaming Cloud, there's an Advanced tab. And in there you can see a few options. The ones we're going to be working with today are transcoders, and then you have stream targets. So we're going to go into our transcoders. This network is super fast. I love it. And then I have live from Stream Media West social media. So this is my grouping of transcoders. I'm going to slow down so you get an idea of where I am. This is a kind of a control panel where you can see the health and how things are configured. One thing that's really cool about this particular service is, like for example, you can see stream health, and right here on the green is inbound bit rate. So earlier when I was broadcasting, my bit rate was pretty steady. If the stream started to fail, I'd actually check this stream, and you sometimes can see patterns that give you an idea of where the problem is. So that's just kind of a cool side note. Staying on track here with outputs and targets, this here is a list of the preset transcoders in the cloud that were created by default. And going through them, you can see that the one on the top is video and audio pass-through. Video and audio at 4,000 megabits at 1920 by 1080. So that's a transcode into 1080p. I'm going to modify these. We've got 720p and 480p, and then these are stream targets. And a stream target is basically, okay, you've got the output from the transcoder, and now we're going to push it somewhere. Well, by default, Wowza Streaming Cloud comes with an Akamai distribution, so you can actually very fast spin up a transcoder and then start streaming through Akamai, and that's the primary function of the service. But as a supporting capability, we have these things called stream targets. So before I get too far into stream targets, I'm going to modify my transcoder here. So this is going to be my pass-through, so I'm going to leave that one alone because I just want the audio and video to pass through. This one's going to be not needed because I'm passing through 1080p on the first one, so I'm going to delete that. And then this one is 720 at 2600. Well, I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet here that I made earlier, and I need a 720p, but I needed it 4000 for Facebook, and I needed it 128, so I'm just checking it here. So I'm going to modify this transcoder, and I'm going to do from 2600, I'm going to make it 4000, leave the bit rate as it is, the resolution as it is, everything looks great, save. That'll be my Facebook transcoder. Now I need another one to go to Twitch at 960 by 540. So I'm going to go ahead and modify this one here. Video and audio, the bit rate, if I recall, was 800. So I'm going to change it from 1600 to 800. Again, that sounds really small. They wanted 96K audio. There we go. I'm going to move it up to baseline, which is best for mobile. I'm going to assume that most people are going to be watching Periscope on their mobile device. And then the aspect ratio, which is critical here, needs to be 960 by 540. And I don't need to worry about the keyframe because it's coming through from the source. I'm going to hit save. So I've got my pass-through, I've got my 720p, and I've got my 540. I don't need this one. I'm just going to delete it because I hit edit. I meant to hit delete. I'm just going to clear out the transcoder configuration just because I can, and it's cleaner that way. Actually, you know, sorry. For time, I'm not going to delete it, but the OCD in me wants to get rid of the transcoders I'm not using, but it's really not a big deal. Okay, so we've modified the transcoder stream. We've already done the live stream. We've already done the login. Now we're going to get the streaming URLs. So this is kind of the fun part. So let's go over to Twitch, and let's find our streaming URL for them. First thing I've noticed is different endpoints. So Twitch is all over the world with ingest points. I'm going to use the one in Los Angeles, which it's right here, live.lax.twitch.tv. I've already written these down for copy-paste, but that's where I got that. And I will need a stream key, which is available in my Twitch dashboard. I'm not going to open it up right now because, again, it's just a string of text, and I'll show it to you when I actually do the end-to-end demo. Periscope. I noticed that they default to Asia. Right now, I have it on Oregon. I was testing earlier. I'll talk a little bit about it. Periscope's is a rough and tumble CDN to push into. You have to work with it. You have to massage the settings. Earlier, I was in here and I edited the region, and you cannot see that, can you? It defaulted to Asia. I thought, I'm going to use Northern California because I'm in California. It wouldn't work, period. In fact, I was a little bummed because I thought, I'm not going to be able to demonstrate Periscope because I just can't get it working. Well, I switched over to Oregon, and I'm sure if I switched to Virginia, it would be the same thing. As soon as I switched to Oregon, and you can see oregon.pstp.tv, it started working. So again, trial and error, just like we've always done. If one thing doesn't work, try something else. So I've got my URL right there, and then I also have a stream key. The stream key is very unique. It's like a password. And they tell you, not as much in Periscope, but like in YouTube, they'll mask it, they'll hide it, because you don't want your stream key to get out because it gives anybody basically the keys to your streaming site. So that's how you get the stream key and the URL for Periscope for YouTube. Again, a little more of an elegant UI. It's giving me some kind of pink slip here. I hopefully didn't put anything copyrighted downstream recently. I don't think I did. I'm going to go live streaming. And there's two types of streaming in YouTube. I'd love to go into detail on it. There's events where you can configure things like VR360, you can schedule. It's kind of a cool little event UI for automatically getting events to start up at particular time intervals. And then there's like the spontaneous streaming, which the settings always stay the same. So that's the one I'm using. So this is the stream now, if you can see that in the left. And then down here, I've got my URL, and then I've got my stream key. And if you steal my stream key, have fun with that. I'm going to change it later if I don't forget. So, I've got that. That's it. I mean, you literally go into YouTube and you go to live streaming, you go to stream now, you scroll down, and there's your information. So, again, example for YouTube, and finally, Facebook. I know this one by heart, but for some reason I'm using the link anyway. Facebook has really moved it forward with a very cool way to get live video into their network. Wowza just released a product called the Wowza Clearcaster that they built with Facebook that does all of this stuff we're talking about in the background. And I'll get really excited and I'll end up talking too much about that, but it's fantastic. It uses this same UI. So you hit Create Live Stream, and immediately it's intuitive. You've got an Rtmp URL right there. You've got a stream key. This is very Facebooky, so you can say, hey everyone, check out my live stream from HB. That's my attempt at being cool for the kids. And then, you can title it for VOD purposes later. In these settings here, you could actually push a 360 stream. Very, very cool. I'm ready to go live. All I need to do is get these settings working. I'm going to copy this stream key because I'm going to need it later, because the stream key changes frequently with Facebook. As I understand it, it's only good for 24 hours. YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, stream key never changes unless you tell it to change. Facebook, I suggest setting up the stream relatively close to when the event commences. So if your event's at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, do this at like 9. And if for some reason you're not able to push a stream into Facebook, go to this page and get the stream key because it might have changed. Another free tip on Facebook is maybe you have set up a scheduled stream for next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Well, if between now and next Wednesday you do a live broadcast and get a new stream key, that scheduled broadcast is going to need to have a new stream key generated. So they're very particular about the stream keys, and that's fine. I mean, the people who do this on a daily basis and make a living at streaming, they're a little annoyed that they have to deal with the stream keys changing constantly, and it does create a little bit extra overhead, and that's part of the reason, again, why the Clearcaster from Wowza exists, because they're able to preserve the settings that they hold dear, yet we make it very convenient. So right now we're doing it manually, and we have the URL and the stream key information from Facebook. So we're ready to rock and roll, you guys. We're going to set up our stream targets here in Wowza Streaming Cloud. Got 10 minutes, and I think we're totally going to make it. So back into Wowza Streaming Cloud. Shouldn't be unfamiliar. This is our 1080p pass-through, and I am going to add a stream target. Now, right now I'm going to choose Custom, and I'm creating an encode from the transcode. I don't know if that's an oxymoron. You can fact check me on it later. My target is Twitch, and my provider is Rtmp. That's what we call it in Wowza Streaming Cloud, and I'm going to go grab a URL from my handy-dandy cheat sheet. This is for Twitch right here. I just pasted it. That was wrong. Control-C. And I'm going to paste the URL, and then I'm going to paste the stream name. And this is going to get a little repetitive, but bear with me. It'll be great in the end. One thing to watch out for, as with any service, is make sure there aren't any autofills that are putting unnecessary information into the fields. Hit Add. We've got that one configured. The next one is, and I did 1080p, so I did a little cheat sheet here to try to go faster. This is Periscope, so I'm going to grab the Rtmp URL, add a stream target, custom. Target name is Periscope. Wait, I'm on the wrong transcode. Sorry. This is the 1080p. I need to go down to the 540 and add the stream target. One thing I like about presenting at Streaming Media is everybody understands that this stuff is hard. So I don't feel like this energy of criticism coming from you guys. Or maybe it's just me, but I'll roll with it. Grabbing the stream key for Periscope here. And before I hit add, I'm going to check my stream key because these things change. So I've got or.pscpe. I'm actually going to use that because of what I talked about earlier. Periscope was giving me fits, so I'm going to use a fresh URL, not California. I'm going to use the Oregon one, and you need to strip the prefix, and if there's a slash on the back of it, you don't need that in our system. And then I'm going to refresh the stream key. I have about 8 minutes, so I am sensitive to time here. Copied. When this all comes on, I'm going to do a victory march. Okay, no autofill, and we're done. Okay, so we've got Periscope in there, and we're going to do our next one, which is YouTube. So I'm going to grab the YouTube URL. It's going to be going off of the pass-through, the 1080p, add stream target, custom, call it YouTube. We're going to go Rtmp, paste the URL, go get the stream name, stream key, stream name, potato patata, no autofill. We have one more after this. And I'm going to grab the Facebook URL. That is going to be going off its own encoder here, or its own transcoder at 720p. So I will do add custom. Now you will see in our UI that there is a Facebook Live. You can authorize Facebook Live through Wowza Streaming Cloud. You can also do it through Wowza Streaming Engine. I want to demonstrate the API that I showed earlier. It aligns with the other services that we're using. Call this Facebook. Provider is Rtmp. Paste our URL, which is very consistent, and then the stream name, which is very dynamic. I'm going to get this from Facebook. I had it in the clipboard a second ago. There it is. No autofills. Add. We got it. I'm going to start the transcoder. So this takes a few seconds, depending on how busy the data center that the transcoder is running in. I believe this one's running in AWS. So this will take a couple minutes to set up. Once that's up and running, we'll fire up Wirecast, and what I am expecting to see are all these streams on all 4 social media networks. So we're running, immediately go over to Wirecast, immediately start broadcasting. I don't have a blinking broadcast sign. I'm sending that clock up to the interwebs. I can see that it's coming in. Now the moment of truth. Let's see if it works. So here's the Facebook screen. In a second, we should see this change, and it is. It's changing from, here are your URLs and stream key, to, hey, look, it's a preview. I'm going to share this on my timeline live, but I'm going to put it to private, just because. Or actually, no, I'm going to go public just to be a rebel. And boom, I'm live on Facebook. See the cool little live logo on the upper left? Let's check out Periscope over here. Preview broadcast. Ooh, it worked. You see the smile on my face? You don't have to applaud. And let's see if Twitch is working. Twitch, I have to find my dashboard. I have it over here in one of these slides. Oh, where is it? Here it is. So Twitch, hyperlink, open hyperlink. And I should see, after it all loads, there it is. It says offline, but there it is live. Oh, there it is. Good. Almost. Okay, so you see it's in Twitch. And what was the last one? YouTube, right? Okay, YouTube is really, now I've got offline with a green, so I don't know. YouTube looks like it's not working. I promise you I'm not going to go into troubleshooting, but I am going to take a quick look at the outputs and targets. See, I've got a green light here in Wowza Streaming Cloud that YouTube is working, so that's a good sign. Why it's not working here, I don't know. Really quick, it says green, but offline. I'm a little confused. I'm going to refresh the page, and then we're almost done. It's like it's trying, because it was auto-playing. Anyway, I promise you I could get this working with a little bit of work. Let's go over to Facebook and see that I have friends of mine joining. And they're like, that's a blank screen. In any case, for sake of time, for sake of brevity, that was the end-to-end solution, folks. So we have a couple minutes. And by the way, thank you for taking this journey with me. I have a couple minutes. Any questions? Yes?
A little bit of direction here. Is there anything that can keep streams alive if, like, Wirecast, your connection breaks?
Sure.
It's like Facebook, if it dies, then it'll turn into a VOD and I can't get it back.
Excellent question. The question was, is there anything that keeps the broadcast alive if that first mile went down? Now, the way I like to deal with it is just set up Wowza Streaming Engine, and in the background I have what's called a pre-roll, mid-roll loop. So if Wirecast were to quit, Wowza Streaming Engine could actually cut, and you want to make sure the resolution's aligned. It can cut to, we're having technical difficulties, you can play some elevator music or something like that. That will keep it going. That's not in Wowza Streaming Cloud, but it is in Wowza Streaming Engine, so that's a technical option. I think you get 3 minutes with Facebook. I was actually doing a demo last week with our Clearcaster product, and I was working with our CEO, of all people, and he pulled the Ethernet cable out of the back of the encoder while we were doing this demo. And I was just, I can't believe you did that. But what was cool is he plugged it back in, and it all came back alive. So that was a good moment in time. But I totally feel you on that. There are options to do that. That's actually a fantastic thing to recognize, that these networks do go down sometimes. And you need to be ready for that. So if you can place a streaming engine in the middle or something that can immediately switch to an MP4 or something in the background, that's great. Any other questions? Sir? Wowza Cloud does support a primary and a secondary ingest, yes. It doesn't necessarily toggle. As I understand it, it's a failover. So if one fails, it will start to grab data from the other. I think Facebook is working on that particular configuration. I don't think it's available quite yet. Any other questions? Yes, Robert.
Just more comments. That's really common with YouTube, by the way. So just as a tip, I've had several events where new events had to be created on the fly moments before the event because the keys didn't work.
Yep.
So I've seen that happen a lot. So just as a tip, do it closer to your real live event, like a day ahead, because it might fail.
I absolutely agree. That was an expert comment from the Peanut Gallery from Robert Reinhardt, and we've all done that, where you want to do your due diligence. Your boss is going to be telling you, you better have this ready, and you're doing it a week out. Well, honestly, things happen, and you have to really quick make up a event before the event. And I was going to get into it in the presentation. That's a nice black screen, isn't it? I'm really proud of that. But it's working, trust me. You want to have a game plan and a contingency plan, and this is going to be my closing statement, and we're going to wrap up. What happens when you have to make an event really quick? We'll have that sitting there in a text document, ready to go. What happens if it breaks and I don't have a MP4 in the background to switch to? We'll have somebody monitoring each network who cares about the people who are ultimately going to start throwing virtual tomatoes at your stream. It's not working. This is terrible. Well, you have to have someone there administering customer service. Think about the user experience for each network, and I think you'll have a better experience pushing videos to multiple networks. So if there aren't any other questions, we're going to go ahead and conclude. I'm going to go ahead and say thank you. Appreciate it. I'm here. You had another question?
I have one more comment.
I can barely see you because of the light, so.
Okay. Just that Facebook's terms of service don't allow you to stream to other social media providers at the same time. So I've had to point that out to clients before. I don't think they clamped down on it yet, but just so you know. And Wowza even points that out in the streaming engine to target help off the slide.
That's good to know.
Just be aware, Facebook only allows you to stream to your own site, and that's the only other destination you're supposed to use according to their.
That's my understanding as well. Just quick summary on the comment so that it gets into the recording. Facebook does only allow streaming to their environment and to a website. So again, you do want to be in compliance on that. I don't think they're being super aggressive in enforcement. I think they're having internal discussions about that, but it's truly none of my business. Personally, I hope that it opens up so that you have the autonomy that you need. Any other comments, Robert? Anything else? Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.